Hi guys, so you want to add hair to your mesh. Well, the first thing you want to do is select your mesh, and if you're happy with the shape, leave it as is. But for me, I am going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and I am going to set it to 4, and I am going to right click shade smooth. Now that I've got my cube-like sphere, I am going to go to the particle properties over here. I'm going to add one, and I'm going to switch to hair. I'm going to go to the hair length and just change this to something a little bit more reasonable, like 0.3. And you can also click on source over here. Everything is fine for what I want to do, but I do want to go to children and click on interpolate. And I just want to make it even more fuzzy by pressing 100 over here. On top of that, I want to click on the render viewport to see how it looks when rendered. Maybe this is too much. Let's half the amount of hair particles by putting it to 50. And maybe you want it even less. Maybe you just want it to be on 1 or 10. And you can find the amount that works for you. But I think 50 is pretty good for me. Actually, let's stick to 100. That's what I said I'm going to use. Okay, the next thing I want to do is go to clumping, and you can just move this with your mouse up and down, and you can kind of clump things together. It creates an interesting shape. Too much of a clump doesn't really make sense, but it creates a new interesting object. But I'm going to go for 0.4. The next thing I'd like to do before I continue messing, well, one thing is the roughness, of course, and I am going to mess with the shape of here, mess with the size, and uniform, and you can really just play around with this and find a style you like. You can also add a king type, so if we change it to wave, looks like that, or if we change it to curl, it looks more like feathers. So there's some real interesting styles you can go for. Radial's quite decent, but I think I'm going to stick to spiral for this example. And once we've done that, I'm just going to minimize what I'm not using. You can add hair shape. So we're just going to increase this. And there is one thing I want to do. I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. Nope, everything is fine. Let's go to maybe change the size of the roughness to 5. That looks pretty cool. Now let's play with the color. Let's go to the material settings and let's choose the color. And there you have it. We've got our color. The next thing we want to do is press Shift A, and we're going to choose a plane. I'm going to scale this plane up by pressing S and then pulling it out, and pressing numpad 1 and then pressing G, just bringing it down like that. And let's click on the particle properties. We're going to add a particle. We're going to choose hair. We're going to look at this through the camera view to see what we would see. First thing we want to do is probably make this 0.1. Next thing, now keep in mind this area is larger, which means 1000 doesn't have the same effect, but let's just see what we can do with this nevertheless. So one of the first things we want to do is change to interpolate. There's a lot more there. Let's go to 100. This is what we'd see in render view. We can change render to maybe 250. If you ever decide to render it, it would be even more. And we can mess with this style a little bit by messing with the seeds of where everything starts. And we can also mess with this, the parting. And you can really just have fun playing around with some of these settings. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think I'm ready for the next step. Let's change this to 2. And I think I'm happy with that. Let's go to color, new. Well, if we change this to green, how would it look? Well, it actually looks quite decent. And you can really play around with this. The hair particles, we've actually made this feather duster hair shape over here. And we've created a carpety grass strand feature over here. And if we click render image, it may not look like you want it to look, as you'll see in a sec. It'll take a little while to load. If you've got a potato PC like this, there we go. So this is how it looks in render view. Now, remember this. Now let's go to our render settings. And we're going to add ambient occlusion, bloom. We're going to also add screen space reflection. I'm going to click on hair over here. And we're going to add an additional subdivision to 5. Let's see how strips looks. I actually prefer how strips looks. So let's click on render image. And just by messing with the render tab, we almost have a completely different look of what we originally rendered in the first place. It might take a little longer to render now because we've turned on a lot more settings, but you can really play around with this and have fun. Anyways, I hope you like this introduction to the hair particle tool. I will be making more hair particle tutorials. I'm busy learning how to make them collide together. And yeah, please like and subscribe. And when it finally loads, I'm going to pause it and unpause it when it's done rendering. And there you have it. So it's got this blur effect, which is quite cool. And this really does look like a believable carpet. So I'm quite happy with that. And if you're not a fan of strips, you can just click strand and you can render it again. Render image. And changing from strips, this is what we get. So that's quite interesting. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Please like and subscribe. Cheers.